So in this video, we will going to discuss about a simple program, how to read the marks of a 3 subjects and find the average. So normally when we are reading the marks or when you are getting the marks, we are going to get the marks in an integer value. But when you are trying to take the average, what happens? You will going to get it in a decimal, that is the floating value. So how to solve such type of problems? So how to do that? So first we will going to have include, that is header files stdio.h and conio.h, then void main, then we are going to use the clear screen. So first we will going to declare the 3 marks. So since we want to read the marks of the 3 subjects, so we are going to take it as M1, M2 and M3, which is of the integer type. Then so once you have that, so the memory locations for M1, M2, M3, which is the garbage value, which is going to be having the memory locations of 2 bytes for each integer. So the declaration of the variable, the resultant, what you will going to get the average of 3, which will going to be in the float, which is average. So the average, the moment when you talk about float, it will going to become 4 bytes. So that is the reason we have 4 bytes here. So printf, enter the marks of the 3 subjects. So that is to be entered in the quotes. Enter the marks of 3 subjects within double quotes, and of course follow with the semicolon. So we are entering those marks here, M1, M2, M3, which is 98, 97 and 98. So then read those numbers. So that means M1 will be having 98, M2 will be having 97 and M3 will going to have 98. So when you want to take the average, so if you take M1 plus M2 plus M3 divided by 3, so then what happens? Because integer by integer, so that is the implicit conversion, or there is no conversion takes place because the numerator is also an integer, the denominator is also an integer. So integer by integer, you will always get an integer. So whatever the average you will going to get will not be having the exact value because you are truncating the decimal point, because of, even though the average is there, is in the float, but the result what you will going to get of an integer, and that integer value is converted into float, so thereby if you will not be able to get the exact value. So now we need to do the explicit conversion. What is that explicit conversion? The explicit conversion what we are trying to make is converting the integer marks of M1, M2, M3 into float. So that is the reason we used float, then M1 plus M2 plus M3. Now we are forcibly converting the values of M1, M2, M3 as a float function or the float variable. Then divided by 3. So then what we are going to get out of that? The average will going to be 97.667. Otherwise what happens? Suppose if you don't use float here, then what happens? M1 plus M2 plus M3 divided by 3, which will going to be 97 only. It truncates the value of 0.667. But if you are considering the average is in the float, so naturally you will going to get it as 97.000 instead of 97.667, because integer by integer will always get the integer value, but the average what you have to get here is a float, so it will going to be given as 97.000 instead of 97.667. So now, so here what happens? Explicitly you are converting the marks into float. Therefore M1 plus M2 plus M3 will be 98.0 plus 97.0 plus 98.0. So converting that float, converting that integer value into float, so the denominator automatically converted into higher rank, which is 3.0. So the result will be 97.667. So printf, so marks 1 percentage d slash n M1, then printf percentage marks 2, which is percentage d slash n M2, and printf marks 3 percentage d slash n M3, then printf average, which is equal to percentage 0.3 f backslash n average, then gets ch function. So what will going to be the output? Enter the 3 marks, 98, 97, 98. Then marks 1 will be having 98, marks 2 will be having 97, and marks 3 will going to have 98. Average will going to be 97.667. So this is how you will be able to get the answer. Now we will try to demonstrate this by writing a simple program. So to do that, so first we will go for the Turbo C++, which is the compiler, which is the software which is going to be used for writing this program. So I will go for a new file. So then we want to say include stdio.h, include conio.h, then we have void main, then I will say CLR, then we want to enter int m1, m2, m3, then float is the variable for average, then printf enter marks of 3 subjects, space, and then enter. Then scanf %d space %d space %d ampersand m1 ampersand m2 comma ampersand m3. So here, so what I've done, so we have declared the integer value, so automatically the address of that is going to be %d, that is the conversion factor. Then we want to say average, so we want to find out the average, which is equal to float, converting that integer into float function, which will be float m1 plus m2 plus m3 divided by 3. So once you convert that, so automatically this, even though it's an integer, is implicitly converted into a higher rank, which will be 3.0. Once you get that, so now I want to have the display printf. What is that? Marks 1 equals %d \n m1. Similarly, printf marks 2 equals %d \n m2. Then printf marks 3 equals %d \n m3. Then we want printf, then controlling the number of decimal places after the decimal point, I will say %f 0.3 f \n, we will say average. Then we want to have a get ch function and say result. So when you want to run this, so marks of these 3 subjects, I want to enter at 98, so I will say 97, then I will say 98, then these are the values you will going to get. So how this will going to work? So I will go for function, clear screen, I will enter the 3 marks, I want to read those 3 marks. I will say 98, I will enter the same marks again, just to have the get better clarification. 98, enter, then it comes to printf, so I'm printing that marks now, f7, 1, m2, m3, then average. When you are doing it average, it will convert the float into that is 98.0 plus 97.0 plus 98.0 divided by 3.0. So then it comes to this value 97.667. So this is how it is going to be executed. Now in the next case, suppose if you want to enter the 3 subjects, I will say 50 comma 60 comma 70 and then enter. Then what happens, we see F7. So you will going to get 50 plus 60, 130 plus 80, 130 plus 50, which is 180 divided by 3, it becomes 60. So 60.000. So this is how you will be able to execute this program. And this is how it executes, it comes out, no So this is how the program which is going to be executed on the three subject marks which you are entering and finding out the average of these three subjects on the individual average. So our main thing what we wanted to stress about in this video is how to convert the implicit conversion and also the application of the explicit conversion. So in order to demonstrate that, we have taken this particular program. Thank you.